YouTube viewers, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is a show by the people, for the people. And you, my friends, are my people. The more interaction we get from you, the better we like it. In today's program, Pat McAfee is calling out the country of Canada after our anthem gets booed again, this time at a WWE event. And Charles Barkley says that he's had it with athletes who talk about not going to the White House. He doesn't want to hear any more of that. He says, go to the White House. We'll hear from Chuck on that topic. We got a lot more for you as well, but let's get started with our United States Senate, where not one single Democrat in the Senate voted to protect girls and women's sports in this country. Take a look at this, will you? The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which passed the House of Representatives almost along party lines. There were 2 Democrats in the House of Representatives who voted in favor of this. Otherwise, it went completely party lines. Take a look at this. Every Democrat senator has voted against keeping biological males out of girls and women's sports. Here's a list of the names. Take a look at this. There they are. And people ask me why I left the Democratic Party. Because common sense left the Democratic Party before I did. You're telling me there's not one Democrat, 45 no's on this, 45 Democrats who had the chance to say, yes, it's wrong for biological males to compete against girls and women in athletics. That this is fundamentally unfair to females. You'd think 45 people, you'd think there'd be one. No, there's not one. Even John Fetterman, I'm disappointed in you. I'm looking at you today. John Fetterman. Take a look at this. Fetterman tweeting about why he voted no. Fetterman, who I have praised on this program on numerous occasions as being a sensible Democrat, I might have to reevaluate. Fetterman tweeting out the small handful of trans athletes in Pennsylvania in a political maelstrom deserve an ally, and I am one. Depersonalized as they, them in a political ad, but are just school children. Empty show votes or cruelty on social media aren't part of a thoughtful, dignified solution. There can't be any dignity when we have boys dressing up like girls and competing against girls in girls' sports. We had Laurel Libby, the representative from Maine, on this program last week. We had a male in Maine win the state pole vaulting championship 8 months after competing in the boys' pole vault. Were there any hormone regulations? You might say, oh, well, there were hormone treatments and they measure the levels. Nope. In Maine, all it requires is a declaration that you're female. And off you go. 8 months later. So don't tell me science. Don't tell me biology. There's no Olympic style testing here. It's ridiculous. Donald Trump will be addressing a joint session of Congress tonight. He is expected to speak about this as well as other things. One of his guests will be Payton McNabb, a North Carolina high school volleyball player who suffered a concussion and a brain bleed after taking a spike to the head from a biological male player that she was being made to compete against. We need some common sense in this country. We'll bring some common sense to this program right now. Let's waste no time doing that, because my guest today is the host of Don't At Me right here on OutKick. I call him the Jordan Stopper. Dan Dockich joins the program. Dan, what are these Democrats doing, bro? What are they doing?
You know, I always try to look at both sides, Ricky. I always try to say, all right, you know, a bill doesn't pass because there's all kind of pork in it. There's all kind of crap in it that's going somewhere. We saw it over the last 4 years with the last administration. You know, bill didn't pass. Pelosi or Shermer comes out, bitches, whines, and moans at the Republicans, and the Republicans say, look, this isn't what the bill really is. So I tried this morning, and actually when I heard this, I tried to read up and see if there was any garbage in that bill that was favorable for individuals or maybe favorable for something that wasn't necessary, and there is none. Like, this is a bill about protecting women in sports. This is a bill that piggybacks on Title IX being enacted years and years and years ago. And Democrats don't want it, and I don't understand the other side. I don't. The only thing that I can figure is we don't want to give Donald Trump a win right before he addresses the nation tonight. We're not giving him a win. We're not giving him one of the things that is at his core. They're saying, hey, if we give you this, then we are going to look bad. And that isn't the way this is supposed to work, Ricky. This is supposed to work. You work for us, jackasses. You work for women. You work for men. You work for the people of the United States, not for your political party to give or not give the other side a win. It's all bullshit to me, Ricky, and I'm not happy about it. But apparently it's politics as usual, and hopefully at some point common sense will prevail and this will get done.
Look, it's politics as usual. I'm not sure it's smart politics. We know that somewhere around 80% of Americans have come to a common sense consensus on this issue, Dan. Why be so obstinate about something that is a losing political issue for the Democrats?
Well, here's the other side of it is Donald Trump ran that he was going to do this. This was going to happen. Women were not going to have to participate against men. So they will use this as a political issue. They will say, see, Trump couldn't done. He failed. They will use this as a Donald Trump failure politically. They will say that he failed. He bragged about, he talked tough about getting this done, and he wasn't able to get it done. Well, all right, we'll see. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But that's the only thing, Ricky. You're much smarter than I am. Hell, I skipped class. You taught class. There's a big difference there. So the idea that, we are stopping him from getting something done is the only thing that in my feeble little brain I can come with that gives them any kind of political traction, because 80% of the country's population, I don't know what the hell the other 20% are doing, but 80% of the country's population doesn't want men competing in women's sports. 80% of the country doesn't agree on shit, but apparently we do on this. The only thing I can come up with is they're going to point their finger at us and say, see, Donald Trump didn't deliver on his promises. That's the only thing I got.
All right, Dan. Among other Democratic issues here that it might be hard for some of us to wrap our minds around, AOC, as I'm sure you know, Dan, conducted a Know Your Rights webinar, which was intended to instruct illegal immigrants in how to avoid ICE. And Tom Homan certainly had some things to say about that. Tom Homan is going to be a guest of the president tonight. He suggested that the Department of Justice look in to AOC. I want you to take a look at this footage of her talking about it, and we'll discuss.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Mm-hmm. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
All of her constituents, Dan. What happened to her? What happened to the tax-paying American citizen constituents that she has?
That doesn't seem to matter, Ricky. That taxpayers don't seem to matter. And I don't know about, excuse me, I don't know about you, but as an American citizen, and we all won the lottery being in this country, there's no question about it. We had nothing to do with us ending up in this country, but we're here. We won the lottery. There are ways to get into this country that every president that I can remember, and I'm old in my lifetime, all agreed on until this last president. But I know this. As a citizen of this country, if I am representing the legal citizens of this country, those are my constituents, I really don't have to talk about ICE. Do I? I don't have to give a plan when ICE comes to see me. Because ICE isn't coming to see me unless I do something idiotic, unless I do something nefarious or legal or whatever. So she is not talking to her constituents. She is talking to a subset of her constituents. Those are the people that came into this country illegal. Because those are the people, at least here in Indianapolis, when I talk to police officers that I play golf with, those are the people that ICE is going after. So she's not talking to the law-abiding citizen that lives in her district. She's not talking to the person that works in a factory or owns a restaurant or works at a restaurant or works behind a counter. She's not talking to them. She's talking to the people that are here illegally, period, because ICE doesn't need to talk to you, Ricky. ICE doesn't need to talk to me. ICE doesn't need to talk to the people that I mentioned. So she's full of shit. I mean, that's the bottom line. She's full of shit, and why am I not surprised?
Dan, maybe George Carlin figured this out a long time ago. You know, let's take a look at this George Carlin quote, one of his best, and he had a lot of good ones. He says, think of how stupid the average person is and then realize half of them are stupider than that. Maybe that's what we've got going on here, Dan. Because look, it's not just Congress. Minnesota, same thing. Yesterday had a vote straight across party lines. 66 Democrats. Every Democrat in the Minnesota House also voting no on something there in the state that they had put forward called the Preserving Girls Sports Act. Take a look at this. I want you to see this here. This is a really good one right here, Dan. You're going to love this. This is a Democratic Minnesota representative equating this to something very, very nefarious. Let's listen.
And they aren't going to stop being transgender just because you strip them from sports or from housing or from their health care or any other public place that you don't want us to be. And so, members, make no mistake that this is just another version of state-sanctioned bullying and genocide. And I don't say that lightly.
Wow, okay, it's genocide, Dan. Not wanting, listen, if you don't want that biological male out there swimming laps around our finest females, that you basically want genocide, is what we're being told. What's wrong with us, Dan? We're genocidal. We didn't even know it.
This is one of the dumbest things I've heard, and I've heard a lot of dumb things. I mean, you think about what genocide is. It's the extermination of a people. And that's what she's talking. Nobody's asking to exterminate. No one's saying transgender folks are losing health care. No one's saying transgender folks are losing anything. All we're simply saying is let's protect our women from having to play in sports. You know, when I hear people talk about transgender in sports, one of the arguments is, transgender folks didn't get into being transgender. They're not transgender because of sports. And I agree with that. They're not. This is much deeper than, I'm going to become a dude or I'm going to become a chick so that I can, swim in the Olympics or swim in the NCAA championships. It's much deeper than that for people that are transgender. So let's respect that. All right, fine. That's respected. Healthcare, no one's saying anything about any of that with this particular bill. Only thing anybody is saying is women have fought for years to participate in their own spaces against other women for the same championships, right, whatever, that men do. Title IX assured that. Title IX assured scholarship opportunity, all that kind of stuff. And that's all this is saying. It's not saying anything about getting rid of. It's not saying anything about human rights. It's not saying anything about health care. It's simply saying I don't want women who have fought so hard for sports to have to compete against men. That's all it's saying. That's it. And I get it. We have to be so dramatic, Ricky, and we throw these words out. You're seeing them. What are the words? King, Trump thinks he's king. Genocide, fascist, Nazi, Hitler. You see empathy. Empathy is a big word now. You see all these individual words. It's like going back to the election. And they said, well, J.D. Vance is weird. So weird became a word, and then they brought out that clown Walz and his clown-ass wife, and people were like, wait, what? So they try a different word. Genocide is the word du jour. And it's stupid. It's insulting, actually, to people whose families went through genocidal regimes. No, it's asinine, but it's expected in this day and age. It is. It's expected. And it won't work. American people, 80% don't want women competing against men, and that's what you and I are here talking about. We're not talking about Hitler. We're not talking about running through and killing, no, we're talking about women in sports, participating against women in sports. Don't lose sight of that, people.
Yeah, the response is hysterical from the left, and I don't mean hysterically funny. It's just this hysterical response to everything. There's nothing funny about it, although we can mock it all day. Dan, what do you think of this? Charles Barkley says he's tired of athletes who are trying to make political stands by not going to the White House when your team is invited after a championship. I've said the same thing on this program. I'm with him, Dan. The idea here, go to the White House, accept the honor, regardless of whether or not you agree with the particular person who is serving in the office. What say you, Dan?
Well, I had a chance to do that in 1987 when Indiana won a national championship, and I was a grad assistant. It was a great experience. I mean, it's something, you don't remember every experience, but you remember that one. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, and I probably couldn't tell you whether Ronald Reagan was a Republican or Democrat. Hell, I didn't care. I didn't pay attention. Now people do, but not these NBA guys. Look, these NBA guys need to shut the hell up and get their sport back. They need to shut the living hell up because 95% of them are going to be helped by Donald Trump. Maybe more than that. But they don't know. They just listen to other idiots. The NBA sucks. The NBA is on a downtick. The NBA is on a downtick because the people that play in the NBA, a sport that was built on commercials and a sport that was built on elevating individual stars, Bird and Magic in commercials, obviously Michael in commercials. You know what? The NBA doesn't have anything likable. So if I were the commissioner, and they need one like David Stern, not like Adam Silver, I'd say, shut up. You're going to the effing White House, or those of you that are expendable, you're going to be like the federal government. We're going to get your ass out of this league because we need to make this operation, this program, this business likable. And listen to them bitch, whine, and moan with their fifth grade education about shit they don't know anything about. Kind of doesn't make you likable. So I'm with Barkley on this. Exhausting, tired. Do yourself a favor. Go to the White House. Learn something. Maybe ask a question instead of walk around like a dumbass, moping, sulking, whatever. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn something, become likable, and maybe, just maybe, the individuals will help the whole and get the NBA to where people respect it again.
Amen. And hallelujah, Dan Dockich. I've been waiting for somebody to give me a kernel of hope for the NBA. You just lit a small pilot light there for me. Dan, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, my friends. The show comes on right before mine every day, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Don't ever miss it. Don't at me with Dan Dockich. He is the great one. Thank you, Dan. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, buddy. Dan Dockich, a man who had that honor that not a lot of folks get, to be able to go to the White House and celebrate a championship there. I think anybody has an opportunity to do that. You need to go and respect the office. For all the division that we have in this society, whoever the president is, that's your president, whether you like it or whether you don't. Speaking of things that I don't like very much, I don't like seeing the Star-Spangled Banner booed by Canadians, but here we are. Let's take a look at this. WWE Elimination Chamber in Toronto. The Canadian fans make their displeasure known with the US of A.
By the dawn's early light, what So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous.
All right. We've heard enough of your booing, Canada. We've heard enough of it. I don't need any more of it. Pat McAfee, who happens to be a WWE announcer, as well as ESPN's golden boy, Pat McAfee called Canada a terrible country, quote unquote, after hearing that happen. And there's been a little bit of a back and forth. Pat McAfee now trying to make peace with the Canadians. I think he said, let's shake hands and move along here. It's so weird with us pitted against Canada now. I love the people of Canada. Not necessarily a huge fan of their government. I don't think Mr. Trudeau is the answer. I don't think he has Canada on a good path. I don't hold it against the Canadian people. I can understand there's some Canadians. They don't like the idea of Donald Trump saying things like, you're going to be the 51st state. They don't like hearing Governor Trudeau. But, come on, you still love the American people, don't you? Can't we get together and have beers? Keith Olbermann, though, there's an American that's worth booing. I wouldn't have any problems with Keith Olbermann getting booed if he went to Canada or anywhere else. But take a look at this. Pat McAfee tweeting, basically extending an olive branch to the people of Canada. And Keith Olbermann, who knows it all, remember, he is the smartest human being on planet Earth, according to Keith Olbermann. Keith saying, a lot of us tried to warn the new ESPN management that the day would come when this idiot would draw them into a permanent political controversy and they could either be subsumed by it or fire him. That day is today. Fire him. Another day and Keith Olbermann calling for somebody else's job. He lives in a constant state of crisis. Keith Olbermann. Keith, you're not well, buddy. You're really not well. Take a break from social media. The only thing that I know about you is you've basically made yourself unemployable anywhere. So worry about yourself and not Pat McAfee. I will say, I'm slightly amused by Canada's distaste for the US of A. It's hard for me to take it all that seriously coming from Canada. Let me bring in now the international streaming star who joins me from Nashville, Tennessee. He is, of course, Ronnie T-Shirts. Ron, how long is this going to go on? This USA-Canada thing, they're booing our anthem. I mean, does it bother you? I mean, I'll be honest with you. It irritated me a little bit at first, but I'm at the point now where it's like, boo it if you want to. I'm not really that concerned about it.
Dude, it's just a thing. It's just a thing that people do now. It's almost like they're expected to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE was happy about this because it just gives them more coverage. But who cares? It's just booing. It doesn't mean anything. Like I said, it's something to do now, and it's expected. I think it would be weirder if they didn't boo, right? Like it's a fun little. It's what we do in sports, right? Like I got friends that went to Michigan, but man, when the Michigan band comes out at an Ohio State game, I boo them. It's what we do as sports fans. It's not a big deal.
You know what I want to boo, Ron?
Tell me.
I want to boo anybody that doesn't favor voter ID. Rod, this is another one. Like if we're going to start putting together the list, the women, the protect women's sports thing, to me that's open and shut common sense. All right. The idea that you shouldn't be telling illegal immigrants how to avoid enforcement of our constitutional law in this country, that's another one that it's hard for me to see both sides of the issue on. And here is a third one, and this is another one where I just can't get over it, but we'll talk about it. But let's go to Elon Musk, who was on Joe Rogan recently, And he was talking about, this is a video, I think, Ronnie, that's got close to 10 million views now, basically discussing the common sense of voter ID and what could the motivation possibly be to be against that. Let's roll the tape.
California made it actually illegal to ask for ID when people vote.
Yes. California and New York, you are not allowed to show your ID when you vote. I just want to be clear so everyone understands this. In California and New York, you are not allowed to show your ID even if you want to.
Right. Why would that ever be a good idea?
I mean,
if you wanted to steel man it.
If you're trying to facilitate fraud in elections, it's a great idea.
That's the only reason.
Yes.
There's no other reason logically why that would be a good idea.
It's for fraud. It's like wake up, sheeple. Wake up. Hello. Like, let's say you wanted to commit fraud. What are the things you would do?
Yeah,
you would say you don't need ID, and you can mail in your ballot.
Ron, is there a counterpoint to that?
No,
that you can
Ricky.
buy it all? They always say, look, there's some little 97-year-old grandma in some little town in Mississippi, and she doesn't have any family. She doesn't have any means of acquiring any type of identification, and therefore you are impeding her constitutional right to vote if you require her to obtain something that it would be an impossible hardship for her to acquire.
Listen,
That's
I'm just going to
their
say,
argument.
listen, I'm just going to say, and this is encompassing everything that you just talked about. The Democrats are assholes. They're literal assholes. They don't give a shit about the will of the people. They literally only care about their own power and what that power does from them and the money that they can make from it, but they do not care about the will of the American people and what's good for the American people. It's so blatantly obvious with everything that they do. I mean, this woman saying that not wanting men and women's sports is genocide, that's just complete bullshit. Like Dan said, nobody's out here saying that we want to eradicate or kill transgender people. No, we just don't want guys playing in women's sports. It's that simple. And when people vote, we'd like to know that the person that's voting is the person that's supposed to be voting and that is allowed to be voting. Why is that such a big deal? I mean, this is just insane, Ricky. The thing with the voting with the Senate, I thought that when we elected these officials, they're supposed to represent the will of the people and their constituents. So 80%, as you mentioned from that New York Times.
There they
poll,
are, Ron. While you're
yeah.
speaking, we got their names up. I want everybody to look at them. These are the people.
80%.
These are the people who think that it's okay for biological males to compete against female. And if this was, and Ron, again, let's say it one more time for the people in the back of the room, okay? If it didn't matter, if it did not bring the entire integrity of the competition into question, you would see transgender males, female to male, competing and succeeding. You tell me where it's happening. You tell me where the female who
doesn't happen.
became a male. It doesn't happen. It's always biological males competing against girls and making them uncomfortable and denying them their opportunity that they've worked for. Fuck you. Every single one of you that wants to stand in the way of the rights of women in this country, a basic fundamental right. Women's sports exist in the first place because women can't compete against men at the highest levels. It's not fair because of the physical differences between males and females. That's why we have women's sports in the first place. And you're not a woman just because you say you're a woman. I'll treat you with respect. I'll use your pronouns. I don't think that you should lose your rights. I think you should have the same rights that anyone else has. But this is a very specific circumstance. We've seen it happen again and again and again. And what they're doing is they are prioritizing, they're virtue signaling, and they're prioritizing the rights of the few at the expense of an entire gender. And it's bullshit.
Ricky, that list that you put up, I promise you, there's a lot of people on that list that actually believe in private or when they put their head down on a pillow at night, they know what they feel. They know that
better.
women,
at least some of them.
But yes, some of them. But again, like I said when I started, they are assholes. They don't care about anybody but themselves and their power leads to money. That is just the whole, there's no chance that list of people, all of them truly believe, no, it's okay for men to, they don't believe that. They're power hungry and they hate Republicans and they hate Trump, and that's why they do it.
How
They're
would you
assholes.
feel, Ron? How would you feel if you were the daughter of any one of these 45?
Absolutely. I'd say, Dad, Mom, you're an asshole.
Listen, Riley Gaines has already said that she's going to do everything she can to flip the Senate seat in Georgia with John Ossoff there. So listen, vote this way. If that's what you're going to do, and he has a daughter, as I understand it. If that's what you're going to do, if you're going to vote for this, hey, that's fine. That's why we have elections. You didn't like the outcome of 2024? Keep doubling down on losing issues. Please. Keep doubling down on things like this, and you're going to see how much more power you can lose around the country. You're going to see how many more seats you can lose at the federal level and at the state level, Ron. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can't tell me. When we had Laurel Libby on the program last week, you tell me, I want anybody, even if you are a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, progressive, you believe in this issue. You just disagree with me on this. All right? I want you to answer me. For anybody who's watching this who happens to disagree with me, I want you to answer me this. How, in any way, is it okay for a high school athlete, a male, who finishes 10th in a pole vault competition among boys in June of last year to come back in February of this year, 8 months later, with a different name and compete and win the state championship against girls with absolutely zero documentation of any hormone regulation or any medical process to accompany the individual's self-professed gender change? Because, I know you guys talk about science and follow the science and whatever, right? So the science of this at the Olympic level is you regulate the hormones. You regulate the hormones, and once the hormones test at a certain level for a certain period of time, then you believe that it's okay. I disagree with you on that strongly, because you still got the male body. You still have the broad shoulders, the long arms, the long legs. You still have the advantages that we've seen Leah Thomas, among others, have. Okay? But, so you're telling me it's okay, 8 months later, just declare that you're a girl, go compete, dominate everything. You're all right with that. You think that's fair to girls and women. Because that's what you're supporting. Ron, take a look at this. Let's just go ahead. We were talking about Minnesota earlier. One of your favorite people is apparently considering running for president again. Well, running for president for the first time, but
this guy?
Running for the office, yeah. White House aspirations, I should say. Yeah, double finger point, finger bang, jazz hands, Tim Walz right here is reportedly considering running for president in 2020 because you did so well last time, knucklehead. Self-professed knucklehead, Tiananmen Square, fucking liar. You got any thoughts about Tim Walz running back out in a few years to come out and give everybody the jazz hands again?
Yeah, do it again. Gives us somebody to make fun of. I love it. I need to go back to this the men and women sports thing real quick, Ricky, because you were on a roll.
I like the J.D. Vance, Tim Walz debate so much last time. Let's do it again in 2028. Yeah, right? You run for please send this motherfucker to the general election. Yeah, so no J.D. Vance can absolutely eat him up.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.